Tactical adjustments in boxing is one of the most important factors of whether or not you come out victorious at the end of a long fight. So let's take a look at some of the adjustments made by both Shawn Porter and Errol Spence in their recent fight, and how you could use this to improve your own tactical boxing. So the first thing we see at the start of the fight is that Shawn Porter was looking to start his offense off of Errol Spence's jab. Spence always dictates the pace of the fight with his jab, and he was never really able to do that against Porter because Porter would close the distance with a counter and rack up points with high volume punching. So let's take a look.
Split decision victory over Jonas to bout in the welterweight division. Good right hand by Porter. Two of them.
So why was Porter successful in taking away Spence's jab? You see, Porter is the type of fighter who stays light on his feet and bounces back and forth to build a rhythm. This allows fighters like him to spring forward or backward at a moment's notice, and is a common style for fighters who are usually at a reach disadvantage. The one weakness of this style is that as you build a rhythm, your opponent can get a feel of your rhythm and time you off of it. Notice how Porter is bouncing back and forth building a rhythm. Spence can see this and is looking to time Porter with a jab as Porter is on his bounce forward. However, Porter already knows that Spence is looking for the jab and is ready to slip and counter during his bounce forward. He knows he is most vulnerable to Spence's jab during this and uses it to counter Spence and close the distance at the same time. Smart tactic. So we see Spence is going to try to time Porter as he's bouncing in. He throws the jab and Porter's ready for it, so he slips the punch and then blitzes forward. He doesn't land anything, but it's a good attempt. So we're going to see the same thing here. Spence is going to try to time Porter, and when Porter sees the jab, he blitzes forward off of that jab with a counter, chases Spence down. Once again, we see Porter trying to build a rhythm and Spence trying to time him off of that rhythm. And once Spence tries to catch him with the jab, Porter's able to slip it and counter with the right hand. You see, you could create counterpunching opportunities if you understand when you're most vulnerable. Since Porter knows he's open to the jab while he's bouncing, he can anticipate the punch and counter. This surprised many people watching the fight, as well as Spence himself. So Porter also prepared for Spence's deadly step back counter left. Once Spence was conditioned to throw his jab less, Porter would lead with a straight right hand in order to bait Spence to step back and counter him with a straight left hand or a left hook over his exposed side. And so Porter would duck under the counter and counter the counter. So we see that Porter leads with his straight right hand because it leaves him open for a left hook. However, this is just a bait, so Spence takes the bait by stepping back and prepares his killing blow. Then we see Porter duck under the expected counter left hand and shift into a counter left hook of his own. The shift ensures that he cuts the distance and it also adds power to the punch. So now Spence needs to make a tactical adjustment now that his two best weapons, the jab and the step back counter left hook, have been neutralized. And just for comparison, here's Errol Spence using the step back left hook counter on other opponents, and you see how deadly it is. So now we're going to talk about a tactical adjustment that Errol Spence made in the fight. And much to everyone's disbelief, Shawn Porter was much too comfortable boxing in the center of the ring with Errol Spence. So Spence then decided to begin applying the pressure and take Porter to the ropes by expertly cutting the ring off. And so the first thing we notice is that Spence pushes Porter all the way to the corner, and then Porter looks to circle out of the corner to his left. And so Spence notices this and meets him with a right hook. He walks him right into that right hook. But the thing is, the pressure actually isn't over yet. He's going to cut off the ring again. The art of cutting off the ring is to mirror your opponent as opposed to circling with them or following them the way you would in the center of the ring. So we notice Spence also inches forward as he cuts the ring off, which adds immense pressure as if the walls are closing in on his opponents. So we notice that Spence moves to his right as Porter moves to his left, his mirroring him or cutting the ring off. That way Porter has to move from corner to corner, and he stays on the ropes the entire time. But notice how Spence, as he's doing this, he slightly moves forward as he's cutting the ring off, and this is what really makes the walls feel like they're closing in. It really amps up the pressure, and that forces Porter to stay on the ropes, and it makes Spence have him where he wants him so he could tee off there. So here we see almost the same exact situation where Spence cuts off the ring on Porter, and this forces Porter to overextend on a punch, giving Spence the step back counter left hand that he was looking for. So by the mid rounds, Spence was really able to take it to Porter by pressuring him right to the ropes pretty much at the start of the round, and he was able to keep him there by cutting off the ring and keep him on the ropes where he has a major advantage. So now that Spence has made this fight the dog fight that he said he would make it, Porter now has to make another adjustment where he would use Spence's aggression to pivot off the ropes. And so in the mid to late rounds, Porter began to time Spence's shots along the ropes so that he could do a 180-degree pivot turn as the shot was coming. This way he would swap positions with Spence in a relatively safe manner and give him the positional advantage again.
Shawn Porter just made Errol Spence miss with the left hand, and he's got it. There's that turn. He's got a nice exchange over there by both guys. Both guys again landed. There's a nice turn.
So we see here that Porter's against the ropes, and he waits until Spence throws his punch before he pivots off, and this is essentially a counter. He counters with movement, and you see him get some good work on the ropes because he switches the position and is at the advantage. And then here we're going to see him get manhandled again by Spence. He's going to get chewed up to the body while he's along the ropes because he's stuck on the ropes. But he uses this opportunity to wait until Spence throws his shot, and then he uses that opportunity to pivot, change the position, and now the tides have basically turned. And here this is especially beautiful how he's getting pressured by Spence very easily. He backs up to the corner and then he slips the punch, uses that opportunity to get behind Spence, and just like that he switches the position, gets the advantage, and is able to get some more good work done. And so we come to the final adjustment that Errol Spence made, which was keeping the fight on the inside at all times. Because he was unable to get his jab going throughout the fight, and now he's unable to keep Porter on the ropes for long, Spence had to make the last adjustment, was to make it a phone booth scientific dogfight at all times, as he was having much more success with this than any other strategy. So we see that Porter is actually controlling Spence's arm, and with his free hand, Spence is going to shoot a shot to the body, and this shot to the body with the free hand acts to bring Porter's guard down, and more importantly his attention down to his body. While Porter's still controlling Spence's arm, Spence now changes his attack to the head, and we see Spence immediately changes attack from body to head once Porter's guard is lowered, so that's very brilliant inside fighting. And after the punch lands, you see Spence step to his outside to prevent a counterpunch from coming, and it also makes Porter turn on the spot. Then he does it again, he goes onto the inside, goes from body to head. Very devastating inside fighting. So we're going to see a very similar situation where Spence throws a body shot to lower the guard of Shawn Porter as Porter's controlling his glove. But then we see that Spence keeps his left glove on top so that Porter can't bring his guard back. And so we see the obvious shot that's very open as is controlling Porter's glove. So we see Spence go for a right hook, which misses. Porter ducks under it, but what does Spence do with it? He uses it to control his head, keep his head down so that he could land this left hook that puts him down. Alright, that's all I've got time for this one, so I'm going to end the video with some closing thoughts. Now, a lot of people really thought Errol Spence was just going to steamroll through Shawn Porter, and were surprised when that didn't happen. I always felt from the beginning that Spence should win this fight, but in no way would it be easy due to the stylistic matchup. Now Spence really likes to fight people that will try to box with him. He always ends up dictating the pace with his jab, and eventually mows everyone down once they're softened up. Shawn Porter is a tough, aggressive fighter who doesn't let you dictate the pace on him and is near impossible to look good against. That being said, a lot of people after the fact are now saying Terrence Crawford destroys Errol Spence because of this performance, and I also think that's a crazy statement because styles make fights. I do favor Crawford in that fight, but at the same time, it's a much better stylistic matchup for Spence than Porter was. So if you like this video and want to see more, please leave a like, a comment, and subscribe to the channel for more content. I'll see you guys all in the next one. Thank you all for watching.
It's like a vicious cycle. I like so the quite how was I supposed to know she turn out like it did? Feels like I'm going cycle again, and I might just blow my bitch, and I almost missed it. I would have never made recovery, kid. Cause I'm running in circles with